Hello guys, today I'm going to talk about the eviction process. So you bought your property, maybe it's a single family, maybe it's a multi-family. You rented it out, or maybe you bought it with tenants in place, and now that you had it for a few months, or maybe right away, the tenants stop paying rent. They keep telling you that they're gonna pay you, but at this point, you're tired. You already gave them a few chances and you're ready to move on. So now the next step is to officially evict them. And I'm going to explain that process right now for you. The first thing is that you need a legit reason to want to evict the tenants. The most common and the easiest to get an eviction on, from my personal experience, is when people stop paying rent. So if your tenant stops paying rent, then now you have a reason. Now you can go talk to a lawyer and they're gonna help you make a case to evict the tenant. So you call a lawyer and you ask them that you want an eviction. They're gonna ask you for all the adults that live there. So anybody over 18, you need to know their names. And if you don't know their names, then this is gonna add an extra step. After you give your attorney the names, then they're gonna start the eviction process. The first thing is that the marshal is gonna go leave your tenants a 7-day notice. Explain that for non-payment of rent or whatever your reason is for evicting them, they have 7 days to move out. If they don't move out in that 7-day time frame, then the case is gonna get escalated to go to court. From my personal experience, most tenants do not leave when they get the 7-day notice. You give them the 7-day notice and now they're usually just gonna stay living there like nothing is happening. After the 7 days, your attorney is gonna ask you if you can drive by the property and make sure that they're still living there. Driving at night is the best time, because at night, if there's lights on in the bedrooms and in the kitchen and in the living room, then that tells you that they're still living there. Not only that, in the living room, people usually watch TV at night. So if you see someone's watching TV in the living room, then you know for sure that they haven't moved out. At this point, you tell your lawyer that they are still living there. So now your attorney is gonna get a court date. This is no longer a 7-day notice. This is, you're gonna go to court and you're gonna talk to a judge. It might take a little bit to get a court date just because there's so many evictions, especially right now. Instead of taking a few weeks or maybe a week, it's gonna take a lot longer. Maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks, maybe even a little bit more. Everything depends on how many evictions are going on in your county or in your state. After a few weeks or maybe in a week, you're gonna get a court date. It's gonna tell you, be at this court at this address by this time. At this point, you're gonna go to the court and the tenants are gonna be there, usually, unless they decide not to show up. If they decide not to show up to the court date, then that's a huge win for you, because you automatically win the case, which means that you can evict them physically the next day or maybe in 2-3 days. So if they don't show up, that's one of the best case scenarios. However, most people show up. Even when they say they're not showing up, they show up, because I had tenants that I evicted. They said that they weren't gonna show up. Come to find out, good thing I didn't listen to them and I still showed up, and they were there. They were gonna go through the process. Now, if I wouldn't have shown up, that would have looked bad on me. But since I showed up, I didn't listen to them saying they were gonna leave, that was not an issue. So you sit there, and before you go to a judge, you talk to a mediator. A mediator is a step before the judge. The main objective of talking to the mediator is that you want to try and figure something out before you go officially in front of the judge. And when you're doing the mediator, you guys try to work something out. For example, in my case, the people I was evicting needed 3 more weeks. Therefore, I gave them 3 more weeks, but the mediator explained to them that they were gonna have to pay for those 3 weeks. And they gave them 3 days to pay. If they didn't pay in those 3 days, then they were automatically gonna be in default. Therefore, we could automatically just physically remove them. The other thing with the mediator is that they really don't want the case to go to the judge. So they are gonna try their absolute hardest to try and figure something out. As a landlord, you might be nervous because you might start thinking, what if they go on the tenant sides, the mediator? But that's not the case. At least from the time I went, they seem pretty neutral. And you gotta think about it. These mediators have heard every story under the sun. They have heard people bring up their kids to get sympathy. They've heard every single thing. So when your tenant starts to speak about their kids, in your mind, because you hear a lot of rumors, you might think, I lost this case, or they're gonna be able to stay there not paying. But that's not the case. At least in my example, when I went to the mediator, they tried to bring up the kids, but the mediator quickly shut them down and told them, when can you be out? And that was the end of that conversation. Now, every mediator is gonna be different, but there's not even that many mediators per court. Like I told you, these people have heard every story, so they're over it. If you can't figure anything out when talking to the mediator, then at that point you go to the judge, and at that point you present your cases and you hope that you win. Now, the court is usually gonna side with whoever's in the right. So if you're a landlord and they stop paying rent, then that seems a clear-cut win for you. However, and this happens a lot, if you're a landlord and you shut off people's utilities, or you're a landlord and you're just trying to evict people just because you want to evict them, then it's gonna be a lot harder to evict somebody, especially if they've been paying rent the whole time. time. Not every eviction is the same. If someone is getting evicted for no reason, the landlord is gonna have a much more difficult time than if it's for something like non-payment of rent, which is very clear. Just a brief of what I said is: first, you gotta have a reason. Second, you talk to your lawyer. Third, the tenants get a 7-day notice where they can vacate the property. Fourth, if they don't leave, then you got a court date. Fifth, you got the court date, you go to court and you figure it out. And that's the step of evicting someone. Now, if you're a landlord and you're evicting somebody right now, or you're thinking of evicting somebody, follow everything by the law, because if you do everything by the book, then they don't have that much ammunition against you in court. But if you go out your way to harass these people, even if they're not paying, you cannot go and harass them. You cannot go and shut off their utilities. You gotta keep your emotions in check and do everything by the law, and usually things are gonna go your way in court. As always, like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And if you like this video, definitely subscribe. I do a lot of videos like this, and thank you. See you on the next one. Bye.